There's an intriguing report making waves. Tom Brady has very high hopes for Cam Miller, the quarterback the Las Vegas Raiders selected in the 6th round of the draft. According to The Athletic, JohnSpytek shared some insight on Brady's opinion of Miller, and it's pretty glowing. Brady reportedly loves the way Miller throws the football. He's impressed with Miller's technique, especially his mechanics from the ground up and his smooth throwing motion. Beyond that, Brady believes Miller has real potential to grow and improve at the NFL level. Looking at the Raiders' current quarterback situation, they're locked in with Geno Smith for now. But with Smith at 35 years old and likely only around for another 2 to 3 seasons, the future at quarterback is an open question. Could Cam Miller be the answer? If Brady's evaluation means anything, Miller might just be a name to watch. Earlier today, Brady appeared on a podcast where he made something very clear. He had no input in the Raiders' draft decisions. Brady emphasized that he wasn't involved in player evaluations or draft picks, and no one in the Raiders organization asked for his input. Meanwhile, Spytek clarified that while Brady didn't tell them who to draft, his evaluation of Miller's upside was taken into consideration. The front office respected Brady's opinion, reviewed the film, and ultimately decided Miller was worth a shot. Stepping back, this fits into a bigger trend we're seeing across the NFL. A few years ago, quarterbacks with raw talent and upside were often drafted in the first round, sometimes even in the top 15. But that's shifted. Take Hendon Hooker as an example. Once projected as a possible top 5 pick, because of his physical tools, he slid down the board. Teams are starting to recognize that taking a developmental quarterback early often means missing out on elite talent at other positions, like star running back Ashton Jeanty. Now, many teams are waiting to grab developmental quarterbacks in the later rounds instead of reaching early. For the Raiders, that strategy may pay off with Cam Miller. Only time will tell if he can rise from late-round pick to future franchise quarterback. But with Brady's seal of approval, Miller is definitely a player to keep an eye on. When it comes to quarterback development, the NFL has plenty of examples that prove patience can pay off. Guys like Geno Smith and Baker Mayfield struggled early in their careers, but eventually developed into solid starters. Sam Darnold is another quarterback still working through that process. Teams are starting to realize they don't always need to spend a top pick to find their future starter. Look at Dak Prescott, a 4th-rounder who became a long-term starter. And of course, Tom Brady, the ultimate late-round success story, drafted in the 6th round and eventually becoming the greatest quarterback of all time. More recently, Derek Carr and Jalen Hurts were both 2nd-round picks, and even Brock Purdy, a 7th-round selection, has blossomed into a starting-caliber quarterback. The lesson here? If you draft based on traits and potential, you might just land a hidden gem. In this year's draft, we saw multiple teams take that gamble. The Browns, for example, picked up Dylan Gabriel late in the 3rd round and ShedeurSanders in the 5th. The Raiders grabbed Cam Miller in the 6th, a pick that Tom Brady, according to reports, strongly supported. The Eagles selected Will Howard, even with Jalen Hurts locked in as their starter for now. While Hurts is under contract for a few more years, you never know. Philadelphia has a history of making bold moves at quarterback. Meanwhile, the Dolphins took Quinn Ewers in the 7th round, and there's already speculation that he could see the field in Miami down the line. Of course, late-round quarterbacks don't always pan out. Not every project turns into a star. The Raiders' experience with Aiden O'Connell is a reminder of that. But the team now seems to be turning its focus to Cam Miller. When you watch Miller on tape, one trait jumps out right away. He reads defenses well. One play against Colorado really stood out. As the safety rotated left at the snap, Miller quickly diagnosed the shift. You could see him work through his progressions, moving his eyes from the left side to the middle of the field, reading the linebacker, and fitting the ball perfectly into a 2-man high-low window. Plays like that show why the Raiders are excited about Miller's potential. Now, to be clear, no one's saying Cam Miller is the next Peyton Manning or Tom Brady when it comes to reading defenses. But once the ball is snapped and it's in his hands, Miller does a solid job processing what's happening on the field. The big question is whether he can recognize coverages before the snap. That's something the coaching staff will have to evaluate. As for arm strength, Miller has room to improve. At times, he struggles to really drive the football, but that's something that can be developed with better timing and anticipation. These are areas where good coaching can make a huge difference. One standout trait Miller already brings to the table is his ability to create plays. That's critical in today's NFL. His rushing ability is no joke. When he takes off, he's capable of breaking off runs of 40 or 50 yards. Quarterbacks who can't create on their own often need top-tier coaching or elite weapons. Think Sean McVay's play designs or receivers like Jamar Chase and T. Higgins to succeed. Without that, it's much tougher to thrive in today's game. What people sometimes overlook is just how stacked the NFL is right now with defensive line talent. Across the league, defensive linemen are faster, stronger, and more disruptive than ever. Quarterbacks need to be able to escape pressure and extend plays. If they can't, success becomes a lot harder to come by. To understand why mobility matters so much, it's worth looking back. Around 1999, Bill Belichick began to revolutionize NFL defenses by using creative pressure schemes. He'd line up 5 players on the line of scrimmage, but only rush 4 while dropping 1 back into coverage. Or he'd set up 4 on the line, have a defensive end drop out, and bring pressure from a slot corner or linebacker on the opposite side. This approach, now called simulated pressure, forces offensive lines to constantly adjust protections and communicate pre-snap. In short, defenses have only gotten smarter and faster over time. That's why today's quarterbacks, including young players like Cam Miller, need to not just read coverages and throw the ball, but also use their legs to survive and make plays under pressure. Here's where things get really interesting with today's NFL defenses. Defensive coordinators are using clever pressure schemes that look like all-out blitzes, but they're only sending 4 pass rushers. For example, one defensive lineman may drop into coverage while a slot corner rushes off the edge and no blocker is assigned to pick him up. As a quarterback, that means you either have to get the ball out quickly or escape and make a play on the move. We've seen coaches like Brian Flores take this even further, using the double A-gap mug look. They'll line up 6 or 7 players on the line of scrimmage, show blitz, then have one linebacker rush while the other drops back. It's a split-second challenge for quarterbacks. Process the defense, make the right read, and either throw on time or evade the rush. Without the ability to create or react, success becomes a steep, uphill climb. Aidan O'Connell offers a good example. When blitzed, he sometimes forces risky throws or takes the hit and goes down. That's the bare minimum in today's league. You have to process quickly, recognize coverages, adjust at the line, and understand your offensive system well enough to make the right calls under pressure. Cam Miller has shown flashes of these traits on film. There's clear potential, but as with most late-round quarterbacks, the odds are long. Let's be honest, even top 10 picks often struggle to become franchise quarterbacks, and the road is even tougher for players picked outside the early rounds. What's changing, though, is the way NFL teams approach the quarterback position. More teams seem willing to pass on spending massive draft capital for a top passer, instead choosing to develop mid- or late-round players like Cam Miller, Quinn Ewers, or ShedeurSanders. Why trade 3 first-round picks to move up for a quarterback when you can stick with what you have, draft smart, or sign a veteran in free agency? We may be entering an era where every team already has a decent quarterback, and only a few are looking to roll the dice on young talent. Time will tell if this trend sticks, but it's clear teams are getting smarter about when and how they invest at the game's most important position. It's going to be fascinating to watch how Cam Miller develops with the Raiders and whether Tom Brady's confidence in him proves right. For now, we can only wait and see how his journey unfolds.